Hi, this is Nettie Owens coming back to you from Sapari Solutions. And here joining me today is Keri Herdon Brown. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
We're continuing the discussion on what business owners need to know right now. And Keri is perfectly positioned to answer this question. She is the COO of Strategic Admissions Advice, an educational consulting company that teaches parents how to help their child to choose the right major, college, and career. So needed right now. I think even more than it was 4 months ago. Things are so different, and having somebody to help you in that is amazing. She founded it with her husband, Keri Herdon Brown, 15 years ago. She's been married for 20 years and is the mother of 4 amazing children. I put a plug that made the gorgeous painting behind her head. They reside in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. I'm really glad to have you on here today.
Thanks, Nettie.
So we're going to dig in, and we were talking for a few minutes right before we hopped on here about what you felt business owners need to know right now, and putting on your COO hat. Mm-hmm. Tell me about some of the things that you saw as business owners went to apply for various funding and grants and loan options. What did you notice that you feel like kind of is a growing edge? Let's just.
So we had, we were all thrown into this. It didn't matter if you were 1 year in, we're 15 years in. Everyone kind of hit a hard stop with COVID-19, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Depending on where your business was financially, you were moving ahead. You might have come to a standstill. You might have had to, lay people off. And in speaking to some business owners, I think the main thing that I found out from people was that they didn't have their papers in order. So people didn't have their EIN number documented, which was something that the PPP required, not just your EIN number. They needed it off of the actual IRS. Well, right now, trying to call the IRS and get through.
Not happening.
Wasn't happening.
Right.
You had to have obviously had a business bank account. I heard from several people who just always kept their personal account and never really transferred over to a business account. So that stopped you from moving ahead, but you needed to have your articles of organization. Obviously, your state paperwork had to be in order. You had to have different business licenses, and a lot of people did not have that paperwork together.
So just really looking at it from that COO perspective, there are systems that you need to have in case of an emergency, but are just good practice to have around. And so some of those, your articles of incorporation, your EIN documented on IRS, letterhead, yep, to show that number, making sure that you're separating, I like to call it separating church and state, that you have your business and your personal, 2 different accounts.
Very true.
And it's amazing because we're talking about businesses, like you said, that have been well established, but just let these little details go, and they're not important until they're really important. And that's right, what we saw. Right. So still time to get that in order, and more important now that folks are aware that I don't think that the help is necessarily going to stop. There's going to be effects from the quarantine and the closure of the country for a while.
Definitely.
So making sure you're still working on compiling that. I feel like our conversation today is kind of a compilation of all the hot topics. What are we talking about? We could start our own view.
Like TMZ meets business, right?
Right, exactly. So what are you seeing as a company that's owned by 2 people of color? What kinds of things are you seeing? How is that affecting business? What do you think businesses need to know, from that perspective?
It's a good point. So I think that overall, I think everyone needs to be empathetic right now. Mm-hmm. And consider what you're posting. A lot of people have automatic posts that go out. Sometimes you have to reconsider the climate by which you're posting something that could have been funny. You got to be careful if it is or isn't right now. If you're going to stand in solidarity with either group, again, I'm not telling you what side to choose, right, but I think people just need to take a stance and be willing to own that space. If you are a person that is for Black Lives Matter, or if you are on the other side of All Lives Matter, then make that known. This way other people can spend their money how they want to and accordingly.
Interesting.
That's fair. I think it's also important for us to realize that we have to diversify our companies across the board. Who we're helping, who we're serving, who's on our boards, who's the head of the company, what do they stand for? I think it's also important to understand when it comes to social media, not everyone should be talking for the company. Let's just say.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good,
right?
Good perspective. I mean, if we're actually talking to owners here, right?
So just because you're the owner of the company, you might not be the best voice to get your point across, because sometimes people will say things in the moment, i.e. a Drew Brees, who then saw how his words hurt his family / teammates, and had to come back and say something different. So sometimes maybe running things by the internal office, your PR and media team, to just say, we want to make this statement. Does it read the way we want to? And I always go back to, a joke written down doesn't always get a laugh when you say it out loud.
It's true. When you have to explain it, you've missed the boat.
So, yeah, just kind of write the joke down, say it out loud. If nobody laughs, go back to the drawing board on that joke.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying. A lot of it was echoed yesterday, but not from the perspective of, there might be things that you want to say as an owner or stand you want to take, run it by PR, run it by, the people in your company who can say, yeah, that's going to land where you want it to or not. And I can't leave aside what you said about needing to diversify our companies, our client base. It's so, so true. There was a graphic that went out yesterday that showed that 90% of all the leadership positions, in most cases more than 90% of all the leadership positions were white people versus people of color. And I challenged that if you took that, you could probably not change the numbers too much and it would be white men. We really need to look at, is this reflective of our community? Like, are we representing our community when we look at our company? Does it look, similar to, because there are voices that are so different when you bring in a more diverse group that are so valuable to what you have to offer. So I really appreciate that. We're going to switch gears one more time, and then we just need to have you back on, Keri. But you brought something up before we hopped on here about, putting on your hat from strategic admissions advice. What should companies be doing? What should they know about college students right now?
So you have the best opportunity right now as a business owner. As someone who 15 years as a business owner, we obviously help parents and students navigate the college admissions process. And right now you have thousands of high school going into college students and regular current college students at home. And you can do virtual internships for them, right? So maybe someone comes on, like we were talking about your PR and marketing team, allow them to come on and get on via Slack and Google Hangouts and all these other meetup opportunities and work with your PR team to get experience. You can have people come on in terms of your website and your web design. Maybe someone can come on and intern in that manner. So it's a great opportunity for established business owners. Let me start there, Nettie, because yes, managing interns is not easy, right? So you want to make sure, and you want to be fair, that you're not really too much of a startup where they're not going to get the information and the opportunity that they would normally get. So it's already skewed because they're not in the office with you. Someone's not sitting side by side with Nettie learning the ins and outs of your business.
Right.
So you want them to get the most exposure that they can and make sure that you have someone that can handle that new task of managing an intern. But yeah, we're in a great opportunity right now to bring on students, give them great exposure, and just kind of help them through this process because their education just stopped.
Right, they absolutely did. Thank you so much, Keri. I love this perspective of where we can find help for our businesses and also connect better into our community. We'll have to bring you back on. If you want to reach out to Keri, strategicadmissionadvice.com.
Thanks, guys.